Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Pete Tapley, and I work for DXC Technology. For those of you who don't know, DXC is a large global managed services and technology provider, and I work within our modern workplace business unit. So we provide device management and collaboration and support to millions of end users globally. I want to start with a story from 15 years ago. It was the early days of agile development, and I was in a meeting with a customer talking about the flexibility of agile development and how requirements can shift throughout the development cycle. And an executive asked me, well, if there's that much flexibility, how do we ensure that we get business value from this project? And we had a discussion about that. And the thing I said was, well, with great power comes great responsibility. And we got out of that meeting, and my partner Dennis turned to me and said, "Did you just quote Spider-Man in a meeting about agile development?" And I said, "Well, technically it was Uncle Ben, but yeah." And we had a laugh about that, and the idea stuck, and we helped that company figure out how to get benefits from agile development. Now that was 15 years ago. That was before social media. We've seen, the benefits of social media. We've seen some of the things that kind of scare us about how our data and our metadata and even our brains and psychology can be used and manipulated to be monetized. And now we have our guards up. So today I want to talk about three things. I want to talk about what's all the fuss about the end user experience in the modern workplace, and what are we doing with today's corporate workers, and why is that important? Second, I want to talk about how technology is improving worker safety, and what does that mean about worker privacy, and how do we find the balance there? And then third, I want to talk about frontline workers, and people using their own devices now in the workplace, and how do they keep work separate from home? So let's start in on the end user experience. For years and years, this has been evolving. Typically, or historically, corporations gave a one size fits all answer to their workers for end user computing technology. You got what the corporation offered, and then over time, we offered more and more personas and abilities to personalize that service. And DXC happens to be the largest provider of end user technology in the world, whether it's the number of devices we manage, or the number of Teams instances we manage, or the number of incidents we handle. So we've not only been observing this trend, we've really been driving it. And the next stage in this trend is true personalized service. Now there's a lot on this picture, and really executives have realized that consult or computing technology can be more than just a cost center. It can really flow into everything from productivity to enablement, and have real top and bottom line results. So DXC has been trying to take a broader view of what does it mean for this end user experience, and to drive true personalization. We have the data about of millions of end users, and our partner Microsoft has the data about every transaction that happens in the Microsoft platform. So the question then becomes, how do we leverage that data to drive actionable insights, to drive nudges, to drive suggestions on how you might better collaborate, or with whom you might collaborate, to maximize business to you and make you more productive and engaged, and as a result, maximize benefit to the business. So we're looking at not only the technology of this, when we're talking about the applications we're using and the devices we're using. We're also talking about where people are working. Is the location from home? Is the location in an office? We're looking at employee well-being and trends. So are these healthy patterns of engagement that the workers are engaging in? And then both physical and psychological well-being of the people. So when you roll all this together, you can end up with a really interesting approach to well-being, productivity, and engagement. So the technology is there. It's complicated because there are millions and millions of devices, records, lots of data that needs to be collected. And then second, you need a pretty powerful AI engine to make sense of this, to make sure that those insights are both actionable and meaningful, that they are helping the person. Second, there are frankly massive privacy issues here. So this is going to vary from country to country, region to region, even company to company, and users may need to opt into this level of personalization. But the benefit, it's one of those equations where the benefit needs to be measured against what you're giving up in terms of sharing your data. And then third, the third piece is securities, policies. Those must be in place to make sure that there's not an inappropriate commingling of data or a leaking of data. Kind of where we've progressed thus far is we're a lot of companies are leveraging information about what you are doing on your device in your current work. Where we're headed is leveraging the hive, that knowledge of the millions, to provide insights to the individual. And to do that, things need to be properly anonymized and of course secured. So get ready for this new approach where DXC and Microsoft can provide knowledge to help workers collaborate differently, collaborate effectively, and really drive a different, more personalized experience than it has ever been done before. So that's sort of what's happening with more of the office worker, with end user personalization, and the trade-offs between privacy and that mandate for security. Let's talk a little bit about worker safety now. So DXC has rolled out a suite of offerings called the DXC Safety Suite. And while worker safety has always been an important topic for industrial companies, we think of rules and policies and procedures to keep industrial workers safe. With the advent of COVID-19, more and more companies are thinking about worker safety, both in an office environment and sometimes even outside of the office. So, on the topic of trust, there's an implicit agreement where workers trust companies to keep them safe in the work environment, and I think that's pretty universal. And now what we need to do is DXC is trying to leverage technology that will allow those companies to drive that experience and augment that worker safety no matter where they are. So again, with the DXC Safety Suite, as workers re-enter the office, the first thing we want to do is have them do a self-assessment before they get to the office about how they feel. And this could be a very simple questionnaire. It could be longer. This could be tailored to the company's policies. And some companies may want to go to the extent where we're introducing technology to scan workers, scan their temperature, scan to see if they're wearing a face mask. Again, this can be tailored to the level of degree that a company's looking for. And then we may even have people track their physical locations in the building, either through an RFID or by use of their mobile phone, or even just scanning QR codes. So we can tailor that to the level of detail that companies think they need to track their employees. So this would be used for if someone did get sick, where have they been, with whom have they interacted, what extra cleaning is needed, what notifications are needed to keep everybody safe. So again, these are technologies that are available today. We're able to roll them out. In fact, we're rolling them out in our own offices and with some of our customers. And the data is the data. It will be used for noble causes of keeping people safe and keeping people healthy and alerting those if they've been exposed to risk. But the data is also the data, and it could be used to monitor workers, to see who's spending more time at his desk, to see if Jane's been spending a lot of time in the bathroom. Does she have a drug problem? Is that something we should investigate? So there are all sorts of uses for this data, and I think what this comes back to is certainly there are regulations and permissions that will guide overall use of this type of data. But what it really comes back to is the corporate culture, the corporate conscience, and the sense of responsibility of a company to its workers, to use this data nobly, to have the best interest of the worker in mind, and have that agreement, that we are here to provide a safe work environment, and that is our main goal. Along the same lines of worker safety, DXC has also done quite a lot with augmented and virtual reality. Sometimes we call it extended reality. And this is actually another area that can improve worker safety. On the left here, perhaps it would be using virtual reality for training. The best way to train someone to clean up an industrial accident is generally not to cause an industrial accident. So where there are dangerous environments or work locations, virtual reality is a great area that can be used to augment that training and overall increase worker safety. DXC and Microsoft HoloLens have done lots of things in this area. The other area is augmented reality. So can a remote worker certify and help, look through the eyes of someone who is less experienced to make sure that the work is being done safely, the work is being done correctly. Perhaps in a COVID world, we're trying to minimize the amount of workers that are on a site. We saw that during the pandemic with a large consumer goods manufacturer, where manufacturing lines needed to be retooled, and we were able to have a minimum of people working on the lines while remote workers were able to look through their eyes, help them, and certify that the work was done correctly. So the trust issue here, this is probably less about data and more about the devices themselves. As this is fairly new technology, the cost of these devices is expensive. So trusting workers to have and leverage these devices because it's new is an issue. So DXC is at the forefront of this, again, along with Microsoft, creating business value cases and even small trials to show the value of these of this technology, and building that trust to roll it out more broadly to promote both worker safety as well as productivity and engagement. So that's the second area. The third area I wanted to hit is about frontline workers. So frontline workers, whether it's retail sales associates or folks out in the field working on lines and repairing, doing outside plant repair, or even healthcare workers. Often or historically, those workers have not had dedicated technology, and it was expensive, and often the form factor was too large to roll out PCs to those types of people. And more, what's happened is frontline workers pretty much all have mobile phones, and those mobile phones have much greater computing power than they ever have. So the option of having a frontline worker use her own phone to do corporate work is now much more of an option than it ever has been. So then the question becomes, how do you keep the work of time entry, of training, of looking at the next promotion or your next shift, or reporting issues? How do you keep that separate from your personal emails and your personal contacts and your photos and the other things that are on that device? So DXC has worked with Microsoft, and the application you're seeing here is a Teams-based application. So it can be a self-contained app, and it can do some of those functions that I talked about. It has virtual agents and chat functions that, again, frontline workers have become comfortable with to get help, to report issues, and that can be fed to a backend for the company, where typical incident management and even dashboards can be created from the data of these frontline workers who are using a form factor they're familiar with in their phone and able to get work done as planned. So again, the trick here is, that sounds great in theory, but how do you keep the work separate from the business? And DXC has gone to great lengths to make sure how you find that balance. So we want to protect the corporate data. We want to make sure that it could be wiped from a phone should an associate leave or find a new job. Um, but what about issues of encryption? If the employee leave, if this data is encrypted and the employee leaves, do they have access to their photos? Are those all now encrypted? So finding the right balance of of making sure business and personal are kept separate is the trick here. And again, that's a trust that the worker needs to have that both sides will not be tampered with, and the company needs to be responsible for setting the right policies, sharing the right data on these platforms that they're comfortable with, and striking that balance. So really, I think what this comes back to, if we go back to our quote from Uncle Ben, um, this is ultimately about people. So these issues of trust, certainly there are technology issues wrapped around this, but trust is about a person-to-person interaction, and people comprise corporations. So we sort of think of the big company, but it's really a company of people that's leveraging technology to drive a result. So the technology's there, more is coming, and really few would argue the benefits that are promised. So what this really ultimately comes back to is people, and people choosing to leverage this technology ethically, and with great power comes great responsibility. Thank you very much for your time. We look forward to talking to you more about this. Thanks so much.